The Green Bay Packers are now 5-2 after an amazing at the bell win against the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans played a decent game, at least running game wise. CJ Stroud did not have a good game, like at all. Like he was 10 for 21 for 86 yards. He didn't even make it over 100 passing yards today. And yes, the Packers defense, the secondary has definitely gotten better, but the lack of Nico Collins really showed today. Really showed. Sure, they were able to mask it last week because they played the Patriots, but this week when you play a good defense, that doesn't show. You have to work harder than that. But we're gonna go through it top to bottom. But most importantly, the Packers win. Let me know what you think, and let's get to it. But yes, the Packers had a great game. No turnovers caused today, so that was a bummer. But they kept it in the game. Now, certainly Jordan Love didn't have or threw some bad passes today for sure. The first interception that he threw wasn't necessarily his fault. That was a bobble, batted, fell into Texans' hand, and they ran the other way. Now the second one definitely was his fault for sure, but he had 3 touchdowns today. He was on fire that way. Had a really laser point in coverage throw to Tucker Kraft. That was a great touchdown. They had a great over the shoulder throw fade to Dontavian Wicks as well, and another one later on. He was cooking today for sure. The running game um, had some good runs for sure. I would have figured Josh Jacobs would have been able to get to over 100 yards today, but didn't quite get there. But he had his first ever receiving touchdown as an NFL player, so that was definitely a good sign there. Um, Receiving wise, Jaden Reed didn't do much. Romeo Dobbs had some really nice catches. Had a really bad drop at the on the last drive of the game, but again they were still able to win. So not the end of the world. Dontavian Wicks shook up the shoulder injury, had that one touchdown, and he was pretty darn good today. Tucker Kraft wasn't all over the field today, but he made some nice catches. That touchdown catch that he had was really nice for sure. The defense, secondary was great. They were flying all over the place. Didn't pick off CJ Stroud at all, which was kind of disappointing because CJ Stroud had some bad throws as well, but they held up. Uh, for some reason, the Packers defense, for whatever reason, is very up and down for sure. Uh, there were several times where they were able to stop the Texans on first down. Then second down comes around, and they give up like 9, 10 yards. That's one thing I've definitely noticed. If there's one down the Packers are always bad on, it is second down for whatever reason. Or they get a nice stop on first down, have them lose a yard, stop them at the line of scrimmage. Then second down comes around and Joe Mixon runs off 8. Oh, he ran off 10. Oh, he had 15 this time. He had some really nice runs. It was like 22 carries for 117 yards and a couple touchdowns. He was pretty darn good today. If I mean, like always, the game plan against the Green Bay Packers, for no matter what their defense is, they cannot stop the run. They cannot do well against, especially against really good running backs. Really good running backs make them look absolutely terrible. I mean, Saquon certainly did that. Aaron Jones did that for the most part, and I don't know. It just needs to get better. But the one really good thing for the Packers that their defense showed today was the pass rush. The pass rush was great. They got to CJ Stroud a couple times. Rashawn Gary finally had a sack for the first time in a while. A couple other guys got sacks as well. They were able to force CJ Stroud to some really bad situations, some really bad throws, overthrowing, underthrowing, throwing out of bounds. They were causing a lot of trouble, and you can tell 10 for 21, I believe 10 for 21 for the final stat line, for 86 yards for CJ Stroud, who's supposedly one of the up and coming quarterbacks in the league. Not good. Hopefully, for their sake, they can shake it off and move it on next week. I believe next week they play the Colts, so they're definitely going to have to be better than they were this week. But definitely, you can say that, and I said this in my preview video, that Nico Collins not being out there would affect CJ Stroud, especially since they're playing a better team. Tank Dell, for all his gifts and everything, he is a nice deep threat wide receiver, but he doesn't always have the best hands. If there's one thing you can throw down Tank Dell for, is that his hands are not always there. But that's like the ways for a lot of NFL wide receivers these days. It really is. But to get to the final, for the defense or for the offense, the third quarter just really wasn't there. They got the one touchdown to go ahead, so that was nice. But there was a couple of drives during the third quarter where they just couldn't get anything going whatsoever. There was a play where Jaden Reed took a punt out of the goal line and ended up at the 5-yard line. That's not cool. They had that turnover on the punt return in the second quarter, that which really turned the momentum because the Packers were winning. They just got Houston to punt, and then next thing they know, there's a punt. Houston gets it, and then Joe Mixon gets going, and they're up 19-14 at half. But the good thing is, I think what really helped the Packers today was, or the Texans scored a touchdown, but then they went for two, and they didn't get it. Now, at the time, it didn't seem like a lot, but I mean, if they go forward at the extra point, I guess they still lose. I guess they still lose in the end, but it was one of those plays like, did they really need to go for two early or late in the second quarter? Not really. They could have just kicked the extra point, gotten an extra point, and been up 22-14. But again, the Packers still would have won anyway, as it could stand. But let's get to the final couple of drives. Houston goes down the field and is churning up clock left and right. Like, they're just eating clock, 40 seconds here, 30 seconds here, and they're just churning that clock, rolling it down. It gets to the 2-minute warning, and it's like, are the Packers even have enough time to score? Thankfully, Houston, they were able to stop Houston near the goal line, and before the goal line, but there's that third down play. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. A lot of people are saying that they shouldn't have thrown the ball there. And you're probably right. They shouldn't have thrown the ball there. But even if they ran the ball and made the Packers use their last timeout, the Packers still would have had a minute 45 left. So Packers still would have had plenty of time to go down the field. Now, certainly, that extra timeout certainly did help a little bit for the Packers on their final drive, but I'm just going to be the devil's advocate here and say that, yeah, it was a bad throw. They could have just ran the ball, but ultimately Packers would have used their last time out, and they still would have had plenty of time to score. So many may not agree with me, but that's just how I see it. It just play devil's advocate there. Packers probably still win. But then we get to the final drive. There were a couple drops. The Dobbs definitely had a ball go right through his hands. Definitely should have caught. There's another throw to Dontavian Wicks in the end zone. Then he probably should have got it, but it was one of those throws that really had to be perfect, and it wasn't. It admittedly wasn't very perfect though. For all the good throws that Jordan Love made today, and he made quite a few. That last one, his last incompletion of the game to Dontavian Wicks in the end zone. Wow. It had to be perfect, and it just wasn't. And I'm not going to fully put that on Dontavian Wicks as a full-on drive. It just wasn't a very well-thrown ball. But then we get to the field goal. They ice the kicker, and even me, I wasn't watching the game today. I was at work, so I was listening to on the radio. But it was kind of nerve-wracking. It definitely was a nail-biter for sure. But we may have a kicker. Brandon McManus may be the Packers' future kicker for this year. Now, again, some people probably bring up the supposed sexual assault allegations, but like I said in my preview video, the Packers are usually good with making good character assessments of their players. And if they would have thought that would have been a big deal, they probably don't sign him. But they must have thought that, probably nothing's going to happen with this. We'll sign him. And look, the Packers got a kicker that made a game-winning field goal. I mean, just think, if Brandon Darvison was kicking that ball, he probably would have missed it on the first attempt and then missed it on the second attempt as well. I'm sorry. Brandon Darvison just wasn't great, and Packers had to make the change. And who better than someone who helped a team win a Super Bowl and has a history of making big kicks and long kicks as well Now, yes, he has gotten older, and yes, some of his distance has probably eroded for sure, but he made a great kick, and the Packers win. Packers win. They beat the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans fall another game behind the Chiefs, who also stay undefeated. And even better yet for the Packers, the Lions beat the Vikings. So now the Packers are out there with. No, I suppose they're not up there with the Lions. So only one loss, but they're only one game behind the Lions and the Vikings. And Packers still have two more against Detroit, two more against Chicago, and one more against Minnesota. I gotta be honest, for the Packers, looking with rose-colored glasses and all, and the next couple of games coming up, the games I'm most worried about Packers losing are divisional games. All the non-divisional games, I think the Packers win. I think the Packers go in, take care of business against Jacksonville next week, even though they don't have a history of winning in warmer climate games. I think they beat San Francisco at home in November. With the way San Francisco's been playing lately, they're just not looking great. And now with the report that Brandon Ayuk has suffered her potentially season-ending ACL injury, that's not great, and that will only hurt the 49ers going forward as well. I believe they beat Miami as well. I believe they definitely beat the Saints in Green Bay as well. But we've still got plenty of games to go. Packers are 5-2, but that's great. The Packers are 5-2. Who would have figured after week 1 in Brazil against the Eagles, after what happened to Jordan Love, that the Packers will be looking at 5-2 record and going into Jacksonville next week with the potential to go 6-2. Couldn't be happier than a clam right now. The Packers fucking win and the Texans lose. Let me know what you think down below and have a great day. Go Pack Go, and as always, most importantly, God bless you and yours forever.